die. In our lives, we all seek some degree of perfection, some degree of success, excellence in our lives. But did you ever think, is it the right kind of success, right kind of perfection that you seek? 2615 years ago, a young prince by the name Prince Siddhartha renounced all the luxuries of his life. He was destined to be a universal monarch, yet he left all those luxuries and embarked on a quest for perfection because he saw imperfection in life. He saw aging as an imperfection, sickness as an imperfection, death as an imperfection of life, and sorrow, lamentation, and whole mass of suffering he saw as an imperfection of life. Therefore, he gave up all the luxuries. Though he was destined to be a universal monarch, he gave all that up and he donned the robes of an ascetic. We too, every day, we also see and hear things that spell the imperfections of life, but we are ignorant to all these. We seek perfection, success, excellence, while we are flawed deep within. We do not see that we are defiled inside. But this young prince, he saw that there is imperfection in this world. He saw aging, sickness, death as imperfection, and therefore he sought after perfection in life. And 6 years into his search, he was able to purify his mind of all imperfections and achieve perfection. He became a Sammāsambuddha, the perfectly self-enlightened one. We have to understand it is greed, anger, and delusion. These defilements are the things that pollute our mind. These defilements are the things that make us imperfect. In any moment when our mind is overcome by greed, anger, and delusion, and any other secondary defilements that stem from greed and anger and delusion, that is jealousy, envy, avarice, conceit, arrogance, then our mind is polluted. When our mind is polluted, in turn, all the actions we do by body, speech, and mind, they also get tainted. They become unrighteous. They become unhealthy for ourselves and to the world at large. Therefore, we too should seek perfection in life, eradicating the imperfections that are in our mind. If a person is able to eradicate all the imperfections of the mind, all the defilements of the mind, he becomes an arahant. Buddha was the first person to become an arahant in this world. Becoming an arahant means he is then a paragon of perfection. Because Buddha was the first person to achieve this lofty goal, this achievement, he is known as Sammāsambuddha, the perfectly self-enlightened one. After becoming a Sammāsambuddha, after attaining enlightenment, Buddha lived for 45 years until he passed away at the age of 80 by attaining Parinibbana. All throughout his life, for 45 years, everything he said and did mirrored his perfection. There was nothing wrong he did or said or thought in his life. Think how remarkable that is. Think of the mistakes we make in our lives every moment. But Buddha's life was so very perfect because he had ultimate wisdom, ultimate concentration. He was virtuous. He had a very calm and composed mind. There was nothing imperfect in the nature of the Buddha. There were foolish people who did not understand who Buddha was, and they tried to test the Buddha. The first test came in the manner 5 weeks after Buddha's enlightenment. The Mara's daughters, Tanna, Rati, and Raga, the very person Buddha defeated to attain enlightenment was Mara, and his daughters are so upset because they saw their father in distraught after being defeated by the Buddha. So they wanted revenge. They wanted to avenge the defeat of their father. So they went to the Buddha and tried to seduce him with all the womanly wiles, but they failed. They could not seduce the Buddha because there was no lust in the Buddha. Buddha had freed himself of that imperfection. He had freed himself of greed and lust, and they could not influence or seduce the Buddha. They failed in their attempt. And when they returned, Mara jeered his own daughters because he knew this would happen, because he had failed in face of Buddha. He had failed in the fight. Buddha won over him, and he knew what Buddha achieved was so very perfect. And he jeered his daughters. He said, "What were you thinking, you fools? Did you think you can drag a huge mountain with a lily stalk? Did you think you can dig into a mountain with your fingernails? Did you think you can chew iron with your teeth?" In this way, he jeered his own daughters. Therefore, it is sure by then, even Mara was humbled by the perfection achieved by the Buddha. Nobleman Anathapindika spent 54 million gold sovereigns to build the Jetavana monastery. And he offered it to the Buddha and the Sangha. And he also built a magnificent kuti for the Buddha out of sandalwood. It had 7 roofs. Buddha, out of compassion to the Lord Anathapindika, spent the vast season in the kuti. But once the vast season was over, he left the kuti without the slightest attachment, just as a swan would leave a lake. Buddha was equally content living in the sandalwood kuti and also living under the shelter of a tree, in a cave, or in the thick forest. He didn't care of the surroundings because he had found inner perfection, inner tranquility, inner calmness. He could be equally content living in the sandalwood kuti and living in the wilderness. In this way, Buddha had embraced inner perfection by eradicating greed from his mind. Another attribute of Buddha's perfection is his mind was free of anger. There was not a hint of anger, ill will, hatred, hostility in his mind. He had the mind imbued in loving kindness. Once a Brahmin by the name Akosaka Bharadwaja, he was angry towards the Buddha. He insulted the Buddha. He scolded the Buddha. But the Buddha remained calm. And Buddha said, "Brahmin, do guests come to your house?" He said, "Yes. Guests come to my house. Friends come to my house. Relatives come to my house." "Okay," said the Buddha. "When they come to your house, do you offer them food? Do you offer them drinks? Do you offer them beverages? Do you offer them snacks?" The Brahmin replied, "Yes, I do." "Then, Brahmin, what if they refuse? They do not accept what you offer?" Then the Brahmin replied, "Well, then that belongs to me." Buddha said, "In the same way, Brahmin, you have insulted, you have scolded, you have rebuked us who do not insult, scold, or rebuke anyone. If a person, when scolded, were to scold in return, when insulted, were to insult in return, that is sharing the food. We are not ready to share the food with you. The food belongs to you. Likewise, all these scolding, insults, rebuking, it belongs to you," said the Buddha. Buddha was just trying to arouse mindfulness within the Brahmin. But he did not understand. He was angry. He was furious. And he said, The king and the public know you to be an arhat, and they say you do not get angry. But I see that now you are angry, because he thought the Buddha was angry. Buddha replied then, Brahmin, for a person who is living a righteous life, who has realized life with wisdom, who has eradicated defilements, who is calm and composed, how can such a person get angry? Said the Buddha. If a person gets angry, you should be calm and composed, said the Buddha. If a person gets angry, if you retaliate, then you worsen the situation, said the Buddha. You worsen things for yourself, said the Buddha. If you are able to stay calm and composed, then you are winning a battle that is hard to win, said the Buddha. And Buddha went on to say, when you know a person is angry, if you mindfully compose yourself, then you are doing a great deal of good for yourself and the other person as well. But the foolish, Buddha said, do not understand. The ones who have not heard these teachings, when a person is patient in such a situation, when he does not retaliate, he thinks that person to be a fool, said the Buddha. The Brahmin, he was so very pleased that he went for refuge in the triple gem. Likewise, Buddha eradicated anger. He had eradicated that imperfection, and he encouraged his disciples to free themselves of this imperfection. There is an instance when Buddha said, when you are caught by a bandit, this is a simile Buddha gave, the simile of the soul. Suppose you were caught by bandits and your limbs were sawed with a double-handed saw. Even then, if anger arises within you about the bandits, Buddha said, then you are not practicing my teachings. In this way, Buddha never encouraged or never justified being angry. Because he himself had eradicated anger, he wanted his disciples to do so as well. Not only Buddha had eradicated greed and anger, he also eradicated delusion. There were numerous occasions the Mara himself tried to deceive the Buddha. But because Buddha had eradicated delusion, he could not do so. Once the Mara approached the Buddha and said, I shall trap you with the snare that originates from your mind and moves above the sky. Ascetic, there is no escape for you from me. Any person can easily be deceived by this narrative, by the Mara. He might think, what is this snare that has originated from the mind and moves about the sky? And he would think along these lines and fall into unwise consideration and lose his way. But the Buddha, because his mind was devoid of delusion, he gave a clear answer. Mara, I have given up the desire for sense pleasures. Therefore, there is no way you can trap me. I have freed myself from you. In this way, Buddha could not be deceived. That imperfection was eradicated from the Buddha's life. We have to understand that though our minds are a madhouse of activity, the Buddha's mind is a mirror of tranquility. In a rare instance, Buddha explained the nature, the inner workings of his mind to his disciples. Buddha said there are two thoughts that frequent my mind. Buddha said, I dwell with the mind imbued in loving kindness and compassion. And when I do so, this thought frequents my mind. What thought? That may not any being, fearful or fearless, be harmed by my movements. That's the first thought that frequents the Buddha's mind. Also, because I dwell engrossed in a deep state of relaxation and isolation. And when I dwell in this state, this thought frequent my mind. What thought? That if there were any defilements in my mind, now all those defilements have been eradicated. These words alone, this revelation alone speaks volumes of the perfection achieved by the Buddha. And it shows us that we are very fortunate to go for refuge to a teacher that has clearly eradicated greed, anger, and delusion, and all the defilements of the mind, and achieved true perfection in life by becoming a perfectly self-enlightened one, a Sammāsambuddha. In the Nibbana Sutta, Lord Buddha makes a revealing statement of Nibbana, the solution that nullifies all our imperfections. Buddha said, because there is such a state called Nibbana, where there is neither the elements of earth, water, fire, nor wind, neither base of the infinitude of space, nor base of the infinitude of consciousness, nor base of nothingness, no base of neither perception nor non-perception, neither this world nor the next world, no sun nor moon. And there I say there is neither coming, nor going, nor staying, neither passing away, nor arising. A place unestablished, a place unconditioned, a place beyond mental grasping, said the Buddha. This bhikkhus is the end of suffering. This bhikkhus is Nibbana. Therefore, on this Vesak full moon Day, we too, as disciples of the Buddha, should make the determination, the resolve to achieve this perfection in our lives by walking in the steps of the Buddha. So we wish you all a happy Vesak and bless you that you have the opportunity throughout your life to practice these marvelous teachings of the Buddha and achieve true perfection in life. Namo Buddhaya.